Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech
Mhm.
haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
Mm.
la'asok b'divrei Torah. And I don't know if I had mentioned this during our recordings, but we had talked about Psalm 49. Psalm 49 is a psalm that in the tradition is read at a Shiva service, at the very end of a Shiva service on days. I mean, there are lots of little rules involved, and on days when the tachanun, which are certain supplicatory prayers that are in the morning service and the afternoon service, when they are not said, a different psalm is read or the psalm is left out. But on days on which tachanun is said, and the implications of that, basically tachanun is not said if it's a holiday of any kind. It's a whole other subject. These special supplicatory prayers and their role in the service. So, more to the point, Psalm 49. It is perhaps the hardest hitting psalm of all of them, and it talks about the purpose of life and mortality. For the leader of the Korahites, a psalm. Hear this, all you peoples. Give ear, all inhabitants of the world. Men of all estates, rich and poor alike. My mouth utters wisdom. My speech is full of insight. I will turn my attention to a theme, set forth my lesson to the music of a lyre. In time of trouble, why should I fear? The encompassing evil of those who would supplant me, men who trust in their riches, who glory in their great wealth. Ah, it cannot redeem a man or pay his ransom to God. The price of life is too high, and so one ceases to be forever. Shall he live eternally and never see the grave? For one sees that the wise die, that the foolish and ignorant both perish, leaving their wealth to others. Their grave is their eternal home, the dwelling place for all generations of those once famous on the earth. Man does not abide in honor, for he is like the beasts that perish. Such is the fate of those who are self-confident, the end of those pleased with their own talk. Selah. Sheep-like they head for Sheol, with death as their shepherd. The upright shall rule over them at daybreak, and their form shall waste away in Sheol till its nobility is gone. But God will redeem my life from the clutches of Sheol, for he will take me, Selah. Do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when his household goods increase. For when he dies, he can take none of it along. His goods cannot follow him down. Though he congratulates himself in his lifetime, quote, they must admit that you did well by yourself. Yet he must join the company of his ancestors, who will never see daylight again. Man does not understand honor. He is like the beasts that perish. I told you it was hard hitting. Very unusual psalm. I'm interested in any reactions.
Well, I mean, it sort of fits in with a lot of wisdom literature,
Yeah,
and you go look at Kohelet, you look at certain proverbs, and actually, if you look at some of the apocryphal writings, such as Ben Sira,
yeah,
you'll see much the same, which is you think you got it made here. Well, it's transient.
yes,
That's that's what it comes down to.
right.
Yeah.
I am going to pause for a second. So, any other comments? I mean, in terms of the actual message itself, I think, I mean, in some ways it represents the a certain foundation of being spiritual, having spirituality and recognizing the brevity of life and what is it that we really can accomplish. And I have mentioned this a number of times that in the course of the years, it's occurred to me that what religion is really about. What it really is about at the very heart is significance. What significance do we have as human beings? And of course, the connected questions of, why was I born? Why am I in this world? What is life really about? And that's what religion tries to get at. It tries to help us understand that and to know that there is, in fact, an answer and that we can find significance. There are ways to do it, but not through money and power and wealth and things like that. Okay, let's go into the share and continue with our. So, so, so interesting. Jacob's life. Starts off one way and definitely heads into different directions. And right now, we, of course, are on Jacob's journey back from Aram Naharaim back to his father's encampment in the land of Canaan. He's on his way back to the land of Canaan. And we already, just one problem, one tragedy after another. He certainly encounters a lot of wakening up things with Lavan, but it's not over. And in some ways, I wonder, is this helping us understand what we have in terms of expectations, right? And to recognize that life is not here for pleasure. It is here to help us gain wisdom. That's the story. Okay. Anyway, verse 22. Vahi bishchon Yisrael ba'aretz ha'i. So on his way back, while he was dwelling in that land, vayelech Reuben went, vayishkav et Bilhah, Pilegesh Aviv. He went and he slept, he lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Bilhah, of course, was Rachel's maidservant. We just read how Rachel died. Okay, Rachel had died in childbirth, and now Reuben. We read this next story that we're going to, and we need to, unpack this a little bit. Rashi's going to help us, but it actually follows as a consequence of the previous thing. Yes, did you want to say something? Okay, all right. Okay, let's keep going here. So here we go. Bishkon Yisrael Ba'eretz Hahi, when Jacob, now he's known, of course, as Israel, was dwelling in that land, Ad Shelo Ba LeChevron. So until he came back to Hebron. So I'm gonna have to say, if somebody needs to mute, let me see. Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. So Hebron is where Isaac was living. We already, believe it or not, know that Rebecca is no longer living. That we read, and again, the Torah doesn't always say things directly. It talks about Rebecca's nurse dying. And that is actually a euphemism to let us know that Rebecca herself died. So he's going back. Isaac is still alive, and Jacob is on his way back home and to Hebron. But these things, okay, so until he arrived at Hebron to Isaac, Ir Uhu Kol Ela, all these things happened to him. So we're reading about these various events that happened to Jacob on his way back. And there were a bunch of pretty awful kinds of things that happened to him. And this is one of them. This is one of them. So this word Vayishkav, he lay with, right? And in Tractate Shabbat in the Talmud, page 55, the rabbis explain, Mitocht shebilbil mishkavo, because he messed up his bed, his couch, the place where he lay. In other words, the fact is that how we understand this is that essentially Reuben apple pied Jacob's bed. He made it impossible for him to get. That's the whole point of apple pieing someone's bed, is you make it impossible for them to sleep in it. It messes it up, and that's what he did. And there's probably some symbolism involved, quite possibly. We can talk about it in a little bit. But the point is, He did not allow his dad, by doing this, he did not allow his dad to use his bed, basically. So, because of this, Ma'aleh alav hakatuv, Scripture ascribes to him ke'ilu shachva, as if he actually slept with her. So we should understand that it's just the opposite, I guess, of euphemism, right? So sometimes Torah uses euphemism, sometimes it uses just the opposite of euphemism. So, and it's a way of the Torah here saying that while in and of itself it may not be a disgusting thing, it's a disgusting thing. And so it's as disgusting as if he had actually, that's pretty disgusting if he had actually slept with Bilhah, right? I mean, that would be incest of a kind, right? So the question still begs another question, which is Velama Bilbel, Vechilel, Yitzuav. Why did Reuben do this? Why did he disturb and profane his bed, his couch, Jacob's house, his dad's couch? Shekishe Rachel, because when Rachel died, Natal Yaakov mitato, Jacob took his bed, Shahaita netuna tadir ba'ohel Rachel, which was usually, right, it was regularly kept in Rachel's tent, velo b'sha'ar ohalim, and none of the other three tents, right? Unetana ba'ohel Bilhah, and he placed it in Bilhah's tent. He took his tent and his bed, and he put it in Bilhah's tent, right? Ba Reuven, so Reuven came, v'tava elbon imo, and he came to redress the humiliation that was now coming to his mother. That Jacob, of course, if Rachel and Leah were his prime wives, and Jacob taking, because he was so in love with Rachel, presumably, was the reason why he put his couch, his bed in Bilhah's tent. It was a connection, right? It was a connecting point to his wife. And Reuben felt that his mother was being humiliated, his mother Leah. And that's why he didn't want to make his dad feel comfortable, right? Amar, again, here, Reuben thought, Im achot imi haita Sarah le'imi, right? If my mother's sister was the rival to my mother, shivchat achot imi tehet Sarah le'imi. That's one thing he says, but should the handservant of my mother also be a rival to my mother? Right? Lachen bilbel. And for this reason, he apple pied his bed. He messed up his bed. He disturbed his bed. Going on. And this is a continuation. Notice, by the way, it's interesting, right? This sounds like a new sentence, but it's not, right? So, right, piska be'emtza pasuk. This pay indicates that it's an open paragraph, that this ends one line of the Torah, Sefer Torah, and this starts the next, but it is part of the sentence. It's part of verse 22. Vayu, keep going here, Vnei Yaakov, and the sons of Jacob, Shnei Masar, were 12. Okay, so we just read about Reuben doing what he did, and then we read about the fact that Jacob had 12 sons. So what does the one have to do with the other? Here, going, Vayhi, Bnei Yaakov Shnei Masar. The sons of Jacob were 12. Matchil le'inyan rishon. So it's interesting, first of all, that Rashi says, well, actually, so look at this whole story. It begins with the first subject, which is Misha Nolad Binyamin. Once Benjamin is born, here goes, Nishlama Hamita, so to speak, the bed was completed. Again, here is a euphemism, meaning Jacob, the need for Jacob, or the ability, or however you want to put it, right, to procreate came to an end. It was completed. Nishlama was completed. Ume'ata, right, And from now, this is why at this point, because now that he had completed the procreation he needed to do, Jacob had completed it completely. Therefore, now that he'd completed how many children he was going to have, it made sense for them to be counted. The Rabbotenu Dashu, and our sages, our rabbis, interpreted the Lamdenu to teach us. Ba shekulan shavin, the lamdenu ba, that this actually comes to teach us. This phrase comes to teach us. Shekulan, that all of them shavin, they were all on the same level. They were all decent people. Kulan tzadikim, all of them were tzadikim. Shelo chata Reuven, that is the proof that Reuben didn't actually sleep with Bilhah. And that there's a sense of understanding as to what Reuben did. And Reuben he's this, his father, when he comes to, quote, bless him at the end of his life, Jacob says, unstable as water, pachas kamayim, unstable. And Reuben is that sort of person. On the one hand, he's right, to feel the humiliation that his mother must have felt, to feel that. That's a very compassionate and wonderful thing for a son to feel. And yet at the same time, it was not a good thing to do. But on the other hand, even on the one part, the scripture says specifically, that he lay with her. He didn't. He didn't. He was a decent person. He was a decent person. And that's another reason why we have this verse, right? One is to complete the act of procreation on the part of Jacob and to now number this. And then the second thing is to inform us that they all were on the same level. They were all going on. B'nai Leah, so now we actually have an accounting of them, right? B'nai Leah, B'chor Yaakov Reuven. Look at this. Okay, the sons of Leah, the firstborn of Jacob, Reuben. Interesting, right? The position of this verse, given what we just read about what Reuben did, right? So it comes to reaffirm he is not, because if he had actually done this, he would have been punished. He would have lost his status for sure, and maybe worse, right? But he's still considered Bechor. V'Shimon v'Levi, Shimon and Levi, v'Yehuda. So there are four of those. V'Yisachar uzvulun. Those six were Leah's sons. B'nai Rachel, the sons of Rachel, Yosef uVinyamin, Joseph and Benjamin. Uvnei Bilhah, Shivchat Rachel, and the sons of Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel, Dan and Naphtali. Uvnei Zilpah, and the children of Zilpah, Shivchat Leah, the handmaiden of Leah, Gad v'Asher. Ele bnei Yaakov, these are the sons of Jacob, Asher yulad lo b'Padan Aram, who were born to him in Padan Aram, right, when he was in Mesopotamia. Of course, I think what happened was that possibly Rachel was pregnant with Benjamin when they left. I mean, Benjamin, we know, was actually born Kivrat, that he was born in the land of Israel, right? They won. Okay, let's take a look here. A little bit to unpack. Bechor Yaakov, right? Firstborn of Jacob's Bechor. Afilu b'she'at hakalkala kar'u Bechor. Just even at the time of his, doing this messy thing, this bad thing, he's still called Bechor. He's still called the firstborn. Bechor Yaakov, the firstborn of Jacob. Okay. Bechor lenachala, right? So he would be firstborn in terms of inheritance. Bechor la'avodah. He would also be firstborn because before the golden calf, it's very important to know this, that the position of the firstborn was to serve in the temple. The firstborn son would have that priestly role all firstborn sons. And after the golden calf, and it's stated quite explicitly in the course of Exodus, okay, and Numbers, that what happened was that because the tribe of Levi was the only tribe that remained totally loyal to God and did not worship the golden calf, the priesthood was taken away from the firstborn males and given to the tribe of Levi. It was essentially Plan B, but we should understand this. So the fact that Reuben, certainly at this particular point in time, to say that he was firstborn would also have been firstborn in terms of serving as a priest. Bechor leminyan, meaning the first to be counted, that Reuben would come at the top of the list of sons. Velo netana bechora leYosef, and the position of firstborn was not given to Joseph, ela le'inyan hashvatim, except when it came to the tribes. Shenesa lishnei shvatim, because what happened was, remember, Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, each became sons. In other words, part of being a firstborn was a double portion. As firstborn, you received a double portion, and Joseph received that double portion, in that each one of his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, became fully a portion of the land of Israel, each received their own portion, etc. So, let's see. Okay, we'll do this. Let me just check and see. I think I'm going to stop here, and we'll mark the place. And tomorrow, in our next lesson, hopefully, we will continue from this point. All right. Any comments, any thoughts that you might have about what we just did? Mead?
Well, it seems that there was that that basically Reuben's actions demanded a lot of explanation, a midrash, and
Indeed.
this is midrash gadol.
Yes. But it's classic and it's an
Yeah,
accepted midrash. There's no, rabbis are very good at arguing with one another. Nobody's arguing here. Okay, when it comes to this kind of stuff, believe me, these guys know what they're doing. But like you said, as Desi said to Lucy, you got a lot of explaining to do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it's okay. It's just that when you're new to it, when you haven't read it before, when you're unaware of it, it seems amazing. But you know something? It's all about the interpretation. And
sure.
that's exactly when I think about, ask yourself the question, why did Rashi do this? What prompted him to take on this incredible task? And my theory is this, that there was a lot of missionizing going on in Rashi's world. And
Mhm.
and he had Jews who were knowledgeable enough to a point in that they were familiar with the biblical words, certainly the words of the Torah, but the missionaries came with very good arguments. They really did. And Rashi wanted to he knew that if Jews understood their tradition more fully, then they would be able to answer these missionaries. And I think that would have prompted him to do what he did, to make sure that a Jew could be knowledgeable enough to be able to understand scripture and not be missionized. So there are
Yeah,
interpretations. I don't personally have any objections to Christian interpretations of scripture. It's their interpretation. And here's the story. There's data. There's data. And then there's the interpretation of data. And it's the interpretation of data that is reality. So Rashi understood this. He understood that how you interpret scripture is ultimately important. And if you want to really be able to appreciate Judaism, you have to study, you have to learn. And that's what he tried to give an entry point. And I mean, the man, unbelievable. He had a day job, and yet his commentary on the Talmud is mind-blowing. The amount of knowledge this person had, and his own particular style. He has a unique style. He's brief, he's to the point, he's pretty clear, and he's a gift. He is a
Mhm.
gift.
Yep.
Yep. All right, I will stop the recording. Yeah.
Okay.